This video contains spoilers for Xenoblade 1, 2, 3 and its DLCs. Please play all the games first before watching. The Xenoblade Chronicles series is known for its amazing world building, characters and stories, and the cutscenes are an excellent display of these things. The mainline Xenoblade trilogy has over 500 cutscenes, which combine to more than 45 hours of cutscenes, and in this video I'll be ranking the top 25 best Xenoblade cutscenes. This list was extremely difficult to make. I revised it several times and I still wasn't completely satisfied with it. But here it is. I'm sure no one will completely agree with it, and that's totally fine. Everyone has their own opinion of course, and here is mine. There are a few rules though. Xenoblade X is not included as my memory of the cutscenes is fake, and let's be honest, it wouldn't have made it onto the list anyways. I am also allowed to combine some cutscenes together as long as they play right after each other and happen in the same place and time. Now without further ado, let's get started. To start off the list, we have a lore dump between Shulk and A that overheated my brain the first time I saw it. So it's actually Elvis! Oh! Oh! This cutscene confirmed that A was indeed part of Elvis and explained everything going on with Alpha and Antos. These were things that I and the community speculated on since the reveal of a missing core in the Trinity processor in Xenoblade 2. To have it all be explained in this reuniting scene with Shulk and A was awesome to see, and of course we got a great meme from it as well. This scene has to include one of the rawest lines of dialogue in all of Xenoblade. I am of course talking about Egil's line here.
Your blade, it did not come deep enough.
He doesn't only refer to the Monado Shulk stabbed him with, but also Shulk's words. They weren't enough to convince Egil. But it's not only that line. Literally every word leaving Egil's mouth in this cutscene is so raw and justified.
And what of you, Vanea? You would side with those of Bionis and attack me. You have forfeited your right to exist.
It is scenes like this that make Egil one of my favorite villains. This cutscene starts with the cast getting absolutely destroyed by Ekos and Mallows, which led to Vandam sacrificing himself in order to save the rest. But then, after Vandam dies, Mitra awakens, shooting beams of light out of the sky and allowing Rex to glimpse into the future, all while counterattack plays in the background. An emotional but hype cutscene. In this cutscene, Dunban has his rematch against Mumkar after the battle in Valak Mountain, ready to kill him. But just before he could stab his throat, Shulk stops him and explains his change of heart to Dunban. The entire game we saw Shulk motivated and enraged by revenge, but now we can see the development he went through after learning more about the phased Mechon. This conversation opened Dunban's eyes as well, to focus on saving Fiora and letting go of revenge. And it also includes one of Shulk's iconic lines of course.
I have to know why! What's the reason for all of this? Why do Bionis and Mechonis have to keep on fighting? I have to find out why!
Now this cutscene hits me right in the feels, because in this cutscene my favorite Xenoblade 2 character gets killed by my second favorite Xenoblade 2 character. The first time watching this, I thought Jin was just a psychopathic piece of shit. But after playing Torna and replaying the game, do you understand that he was trying to free Haze from being enslaved and used by Amalthus, not knowing she wouldn't return to her core. And you can see how hurt he feels after. This is then followed up by Jin explaining Torna's motives, and you start to think, wait a minute, he's actually spitting facts right now. Definitely one of the most underrated Xenoblade 2 cutscenes in my opinion. This cutscene is kind of like a roller coaster. First you start off with a one-on-one fight between Mumkar and Dunban, with this part where Dunban punches Mumkar in the face, and afterwards reverses the position of his katana and wins the anime sword clash. But then suddenly all these phased mechon fall out of the sky and we get introduced to Egil. And I love how Elvis is the only person who doesn't move an inch as the mechon fall down. Then after Egil's introduction and confrontation with Shulk, they take away Fiora and we end the scene with an amazing scream from Adam Howden.
Fiora!
This scene is just 10 minutes of some of the best character development the series has to offer. It gives every single character some time to shine, and it develops some of the character relations that didn't have much time before, like Mio and Lance, Noah and Senna, and Lance and Tyon. This scene also shows Mio's anxiety, as she marches closer to her homecoming. Mio and Noah's relationship develops a lot in this scene, as well as them exchanging flutes at the end. Other than that, the scene also blesses us with amazing views of uni stretching. I like to compare these cutscenes to a mid-season finale of a shonen anime. These two cutscenes have everything. It gives answers to your questions about phased mechon having people inside. It practically reveals Metal Phase's identity. It gives more lore about Sansa and the Monado, but what really solidifies this sequence as the mid-season finale is the transformation of the Monado and the reveal of Fiora. And it doesn't stop there, because once you play the game, you start to realize all the foreshadowing and subtle details thrown in there. The fact that this is only 19th goes to show the amount of amazing cutscenes this series has to offer. I was wondering whether to include the scene before the Amalthus fight as well, since the conversation between Jin and Rex is really good. But what happened after with Akos and Petroka kinda made it less interesting to me. This scene, however, is a beautiful ending to Jin's story, finally getting revenge by killing Amalthus. The flashback scenes with Zeke and Amalthus, as well as with Melos and Jin, make this scene stand out even more. The way it finishes off chapter 9 with the title drop as the rain pours in the background makes it very memorable. I need to put in this scene, purely because of the way it made me feel the first time I saw this.
Shulk! What's wrong?
I played Xenoblade 1 on the Wii when I was like 11 years old, and when I first saw this scene and heard Shulk scream like this, I felt scared, disturbed even. His screams felt so agonizing and painful that I really got uncomfortable and scared. I never felt that way from a video game voice acting performance. When I watch this scene now, I still get goosebumps from the amazing performance from Adam Howden. And it is one of the best showcases of the amazing voice acting in this game. Besides that, this scene also shows Shulk beginning to doubt his actions, which is why Sansa kind of punished him afterwards. I literally don't even know what to say about this cutscene. It's literally the most wholesome cutscene in Xenoblade, period. The party gets to see a baby for the first time, completely flabbergasted. Tyon is so interested and flips out once he gets to touch it. It's just great. And the way Noah just looks at Mio while they're experiencing it is just peak. I love this so much. And not only that, they are starting to learn about love, aging, peacefulness, just human nature in general. Such a nice and innocent cutscene that I just had to include. The end of Xenoblade 3 was really beautiful, sad, but also mind-boggling. I love how each character duo got their own little final conversation, and how we actually got a satisfying romance ending with Noah and Mio, all supported by a beautiful ending song by Sara Ueda. And of course, the crazy reveals with the Monado replica, Poppy, and most mind-boggling of them all, Rex having babies with 3 wives. Yup, 3 wives, I still cannot believe it. This is the scene that put an end to the Xenoblade trilogy, an absolute spectacle. From the reveal of the Aegis' course in the sword and fists of the end, to saying goodbye to the goats, Shulk and Rex. This scene was a perfect way to end it. The amount of fanservice we got in this made me lose it multiple times, especially when Shulk called A Elvis, and when A said, "I can see it." It also ends with some highlights of all 3 Xenoblade games and a Monolith Soft-esque cliffhanger. Wouldn't have had it any other way. Next we got even more Xenoblade 3. This scene just has some of the best character writing in all of Xenoblade. Seeing Anne's past and understanding M's feelings, everything started to make sense. This scene would make you sympathize for Anne because he was left with an impossible choice. And then it all got taken away from him, which led to his breaking point and an amazing voice acting performance by Harry McEntire.
Mio! All I did for you!
This scene is so special to me. The beginning of chapter 7. It starts with a shot of the architect and our first look at the Trinity processor. Then we get some Amalta stuff which I don't really care about. But then we got into the scene that has made me cry at least 3 times before. And I don't cry often. Rex has lost all hope and faith and was ready to give up, which you couldn't really blame him for. But then Nia, Bridget and Poppy come out to slap some sense into him, with words that hit really hard.
Pyra thought you'd be better off if she was dead. Did you know that?
Every character shines so well here, with dialogue but also voice acting. Definitely one of the best cutscenes in the entire series in my opinion, but it just barely didn't make it into the top 10. Now this scene is what solidified Torna as an absolute must play for anyone that has played Xenoblade 2. It shows the Aegis battle that was mentioned in Xenoblade 2 so often, and the effect it had on the people, but more importantly, on Mithra. This scene has some amazing action, voice acting and emotion. What really puts it apart though, is when Mithra reacts to the results of her battle. An entire Titan sank. Tons of people lost their lives, including Hugo. But the thing that broke her, and me too, was when she saw Milton supposedly dead in the hands of Mikhail. And when she came to check on him, Mikhail just pulled him away from her in pure terror. That fucked me up. Got me sobbing for like 15 minutes straight. Now this opening sequence is what I consider to be the best opening to a game I have ever experienced. This is the perfect way to set up a world. After just these 2 cutscenes, you understand the world and conflict perfectly. You don't know everything of course, but you know just enough to get a decent grasp at what's happening. The 2 titans fought. It ended in a tie. After eons, people started to live on the Bionis and are fighting against the Mechon from the Mechonis. It's so simple, yet so effective. Seeing and playing in the Battle of Sword Valley also sets the mood immediately and makes the player hyped to start the game. You also get to know 3 characters that are all extremely important to the story, without the player knowing for at least the first half of the game. And it ends with a zoom out cutscene going through all the areas on Bionis, further setting the stage of the world. Overall, a perfect opening to a game, in my opinion. This scene is so important and grand. It was basically the end goal of the main party for the entire game. We meet the architect and he literally explains everything. From the origin of the world itself, to how the entire world is constructed. The cutscene explains the Cloud Sea, the titans, the blades and the Trinity processor. There's something so cool and satisfying about seeing a god explain how he created the world that you've been playing in for like at least 60 hours. This scene also reveals all the connections to Xenoblade 1. Klaus missing half of his body, Antus' core that went missing, it all connected back, which made me so happy. Now this cutscene is very similar to the last one, but it combines everything to create a perfect finale. First of all, Elvis reveals that he is Monado, and then you kill Sansa, a god, with a line from Shulk which I still think is the best voice line before killing the final boss in Xenoblade.
That's simple. Today, we use our power to fell a god, and then seize our destiny!
Then Elvis takes Shulk back to the past with the experiment that started all. A scene with such immense importance to the entire series. Then you have the entire party just talking about how they should live life, and it's so heartwarming. Then lastly, Shulk makes the decision to fulfill Maynard's request, to create a world with no gods. And it's all supported by some amazing music as well. I would add the final cutscene with this as well, but it kinda goes against my rules. Just know that Xenoblade 1's ending is truly special. I think we all shared the same experience when we watched this sequence of cutscenes. Pain and suffering. Watching the main party locked up and just being completely hopeless while time ticks down has to be one of the most painful things I've ever watched. Noah's determination here really made me love him as a character, and seeing how the others started to help him just showcases once again how amazing these characters are. But when Mio finally starts talking to Noah about her feelings, that's the moment that fucked me up. Then at the eclipse, she actually dies, and it made me completely speechless. I couldn't believe it actually happened. And trying to get Noah to send her off also pissed me off so much it was unbearable. It definitely deserves a spot among the best cutscenes in the series. The final cutscene for Xenoblade 2 is just straight cinema. I am a guy that doesn't cry often, despite me mentioning I've cried at multiple cutscenes, but this scene somehow managed to make me cry a numerous amount of times. When I played it first, my second playthrough, when I watched others play it. This scene just justifies all the shit that is in Xenoblade 2 and makes you think, wow, this is truly a masterpiece. You defeat Melos, you feel sad for him. The World Tree is about to get destroyed, and then the sadness happens. For me, it's the moment when Rex realizes something is up, the music comes up, he runs back and the camera cuts to Poppy's face. Just that little sequence is so damn perfect. It hits me in the feels every single time. And then after Rex tries to ask Poppy, it hits even more, and it's like, how does Poppy make me so emotional every single time? It's crazy. But yeah, that's what I love about this cutscene. We all know what happens after, which is also amazing, but this is just peak fiction. It just is. Now this scene was literally everything I ever wanted from Xenoblade 3. The literal first frame is already insane. You see a modern neighborhood and you hear a radio like it's fucking Earth. I already lost my mind there because I knew this had to be Earth. Then you see the beanstalk and Shulk and Rex realize it as well. Then, when you think it can't become any crazier, you listen to the radio while you meet with Niall, and I completely lost it. As someone who has played Xenoblade X but not Saga, this information just made me connect lines that I never thought were possible, but that I have fantasized about for years. Project Exodus, and the Safeguard rebels. Maybe it all happened at the same time. With all the info they give here, I just can't help but want a game that takes place in Klaus's world. But then, after it continues, I get hit by some insane Xenoblade 1 final boss vibes. Except it is Elvis. The party confronts him and a new Sansa-like final boss theme starts playing. This entire segment was like a dream come true for me. I could talk about this forever, but this is why this cutscene deserves its spot here. I have already talked about this moment multiple times, but this is the cutscene that showcases this spectacular moment best. The birth of a universe. It is the origin of Xenoblade 1 and 2. When I first saw this, I lost my mind. It was already teased before in the game, but as chapter 10 started and they mentioned Klaus, I lost it. But this cutscene just gives us so much more information as to why. They were fighting against another force. It also explains where Ion and Siren come from. But what I love most about this scene is how it makes all three Xenoblade games cohesive. Cohesive writing is what I love most, when everything ties back to each other. This scene is iconic and will forever live in my mind. Now for my second best Xenoblade cutscene, I have chosen the cutscene that started it all for Shulk, Fiora's death. This is the cutscene that got me into Xenoblade. You are just a couple hours into the game, you just got the Monado, and one of the characters that you thought would be a main party member for the rest of the game just got killed. If you didn't take this game seriously up until now, you did now. This scene does everything perfectly. The action, the drama, the camera work, the syncing with the music, and the voice acting. My god, the voice acting. Every single line delivered by Shulk, but also Fiora, feels so real and powerful. But the line that stands out most is of course after Fiora gets killed. Shulk struggles to get on his feet. He literally lets out all his rage and fucking screams.
I'll kill you!
That singular line gives me not only goosebumps every single time I hear it, but also an insane adrenaline rush. This scene subverts your expectations in so many different ways. And what I love even more about the scene and this game is that instead of bringing back the character that died within 30 minutes, like in Xenoblade 2 and 3, here she is actually gone for a majority of the game, which is a risky move, but made this scene so much more impactful. To me, this scene just means so much, and it's one of the reasons why Shulk remains to be one of my favorite characters in fiction. Now, for my favorite cutscenes in all of Xenoblade, it is the sequence of Dixon's betrayal and Sansa's awakening. This sequence is everything I love about Xenoblade 1. Everything that you thought up until this point gets flipped on its head. It starts out with Shulk defeating Egil and almost killing him by Sansa's influence. But he doesn't, and instead talks. Then we see a scene of Egil and Arglus, which is a scene that I don't think is talked about enough, especially after Xenoblade 3. Arglus talks about what's beyond Bionis and Mechonis, and that someday people will leave this place, which is somehow perfect foreshadowing for what happens in Xenoblade 3, by the way. Then, just when Egil and Shulk were agreeing to keep peace, Dixon shoots Shulk in the back, which till this day is still the best plot twist out of any Xenoblade game. A lot of people like to write it off, as it was obvious that Dixon had alternative motives, but I don't think that's valid at all. Especially when you consider what happens after. Everyone could have guessed that Dixon was evil in some kind of way. But that he would shoot Shulk in the back? That he was one of Sansa's disciples? That he planned all this since he found Shulk in Valak Mountain? There's no way anyone could have guessed that. When Sansa awakens and they start explaining everything, it is written so cohesively and perfectly. Every little bit of foreshadowing led to this moment. When you replay the game, you will notice so many little lines that have further meaning after knowing what happens at this event. But then, what happens after that is insane as well. Sansa awakens the Bionis and defeats Egil easily. Then Maynard takes control and fights back. And during this fight, you can see the crazy mental side of Klaus in Sansa. Maynard also gets defeated, and then you see the reaction from Egil and her Monado just defying gravity as Sansa takes it from her. Everything in the sequence is perfect, from start to end. I have watched this sequence a dozen times, and I can say without a shadow of doubt that this is my favorite cutscene in Xenoblade of all time. And that was the list. Thank you for watching until the very end. I am sure I missed a ton of cutscenes that also deserve to be on the list, but if you somehow agree with my list or have a completely different list, leave your thoughts in the comments below. And if you'd like more Xenoblade content, make sure to press that like button and subscribe. I'm actually planning on making more content again, I promise. Thanks again, and I'll see you all next time.